the mad scientist, in his pursuit of truth, actually conducted experiments using countless insect eggs. In the end, he even turned his own wife and daughter into insect queens. In the future, a virus that transforms humans into giant insects ravages the world. Once infected, a person's body hardens within 10 minutes. Then the infection spreads throughout the body, eventually turning them into a terrifying giant insect. There is only one way to stop the virus from spreading inside the body: must decapitate the infected person within 20 minutes. Strangely, those under the age of 15 are immune to the infection. Due to this virus, the global population dropped to 1/3 of what it used to be. The remaining humans could only hide inside walls to survive, while the outside world was ruled by giant mutated insects. These mutated creatures are called Cagaster. They feed on humans. This is Area E05. The city appears prosperous, but the slums hidden within it are run down and broken. This man is named Kiddo. He's an exterminator. He's cold, calculating, and extremely rational. His entire life revolves around killing Cagaster. One day, he came across a jeep being chased by several Cagaster. Kiddo immediately gave chase. Cagaster have extremely tough outer shells. Their only weak points are at the joints. Kiddo aimed precisely at their weak spots, and quickly took out several of them. But in the chaos, the jeep up ahead unfortunately went off a cliff. When Kiddo found the vehicle, he saw a father and daughter inside. The man's name was Griffith. He was barely hanging on, with his last breath. Griffith entrusted his daughter Elie to Kiddo, begging him to bring her to her mother. Kiddo agreed to the man's dying wish, then carried the unconscious Elie away. A while later, Elie woke up. She struggled to break free from Kiddo, screaming and crying for her father. In this world of chaos, Kiddo had seen many such partings and had grown numb to them, but since he had already promised Elie's father he would keep his word, he brought the girl back to the human city. That night, Kiddo couldn't stop worrying about her, so he stood outside her door for a long time before quietly leaving. Elie heard the sound, got up, and followed it. She saw Kiddo practicing swordsmanship. Lately, a series of murders had been occurring in the slums. The victims had their limbs cut off, and their internal organs hollowed out. Within just 2 days, 4 people were dead. Even parts of their corpses had been eaten. Shockingly, all the victims were exterminators. At the same time, a large number of insect eggs appeared outside the city. The military believed it was the work of Cagaster, and hired Kiddo to wipe them out. But soon after, Kiddo received a letter. Inside was a map, with the locations of the body parts of the 4 exterminators marked. There was no doubt, this was an invitation from the killer, and their next target was Kiddo, which meant the killer wasn't a Cagaster. Following the map, Kiddo traced the source back to the slums. Sure enough, the mysterious person was waiting there. The figure was wrapped in sheets from head to toe, making it impossible to see their face. Kiddo charged in immediately. The figure also lunged at him, but just as they clashed, the figure's chest suddenly split open, and several tentacles emerged. Luckily, Kiddo reacted quickly, and narrowly avoided the attack. Still, one of the tentacles scratched his arm. They were coated in venom. Kiddo's senses quickly dulled. His vision started to blur, but what concerned him most was the person in front of him. This figure showed all the physical signs of Cagaster infection, yet still retained human consciousness. That had never happened before. Just as the figure was about to dismember Kiddo, Elie arrived in time and sent out a distress signal from the watchtower, but that also caught the figure's attention. Strangely, when the figure saw Elie's face clearly, they seemed to freeze in thought. That brief moment of hesitation gave Kiddo a chance to counterattack. He quickly raised his gun and aimed at the neural gap in the second cervical vertebra, the only weak spot of a Cagaster. The mysterious figure was injured and immediately fled the scene. Elie ran over to check if Kiddo was hurt, but Kiddo was more concerned about whether Elie was okay. When he heard she was fine, Kiddo finally relaxed and collapsed into unconsciousness. E05 district was preparing for its anniversary celebration. Everyone was busy getting ready. However, a cargo truck delivering supplies was swallowed by quicksand halfway through its journey. The military quickly rushed to investigate and discovered that the incident was caused by a Cagaster. To ensure the anniversary event proceeded smoothly, the military sought out Kiddo to discuss countermeasures. They ultimately decided to use someone as bait to lure the Cagaster into an underground tunnel and blow it up. But during the execution of the plan, Kiddo's teammate Kasim was unfortunately infected with the virus. Soon after, Kasim's infection worsened. He begged the others to kill him, but no one had the heart to shoot their comrade. Eventually, Kiddo arrived. After listening to Kasim's final words, he reluctantly decapitated him. Crimson blood splattered across Kiddo's face. He then walked into the room with a blank expression, staring at his blood-soaked hands in the mirror, before finally breaking down in tears. Elie couldn't help but ask Mario about Kiddo's past. Kiddo was born in a city at the far eastern edge of the continent. He was raised by Lazarus, the leader of the exterminators. From a young age, Lazarus treated him like a son, teaching him all the exterminator skills he knew. Even when Kiddo was used as bait to lure Cagaster, he always trusted Lazarus completely. He firmly believed Lazarus would destroy the Cagaster before it reached him. Back then, the exterminators led by Lazarus survived by raiding others. After clearing Cagaster for the people, they would loot the civilians' property in return. This behavior sparked widespread resentment. As a result, the military changed its regulations. Humans infected with the virus could only be killed, and bounty paid after they grew wings. But during a joint mission with the military, all the exterminators were betrayed and abandoned. Nearly all of them were wiped out. Only Lazarus and Kiddo survived. However, Lazarus had already been infected and didn't have long to live. On his deathbed, he didn't stop teaching Kiddo to kill a Cagaster, aim for the neck, and with that, he took his own life. From that moment on, Kiddo lost his will to live and completely shut himself off. At his most vulnerable, he found comfort in Kara. They first met at an adult establishment. When Kiddo was still just a child, Kara would teasingly scold him, saying minors shouldn't be in such places. She was the goddess of all men in that area. Even Lazarus harbored feelings for her, but despite that, Kara was never frivolous. She eventually became the closest person to Kiddo. The military, unwilling to lose such a powerful asset as an exterminator, threatened Kiddo to join them, or else be arrested. Kara desperately tried to protect him, but he didn't want to drag her down, so one night, he left behind all his money and a crucifix symbolizing his beliefs, and disappeared alone. When Kara found his farewell letter, she ran out in a frenzy to find him, but it was already too late. She collapsed helplessly on the street in tears. Now, Kiddo had once again experienced the agony of losing a comrade, but this time, it was Elie who comforted him. Just as he began to recover from the pain, he received intel from the military. The report stated, a Cagaster had halted its attack on a girl, and all signs pointed to the girl being Elie. Soon, a group arrived to capture her. Leading them was Franz, a silver-haired scientist researching human insect mutation, but Kiddo had already taken Elie out through the back window. On their escape, the local children helped distract the soldiers, but then a soldier seized one of the children as a hostage. Just as the soldier aimed his gun to kill the child, Elie suddenly recalled a painful memory. Then, from her mouth came a Cagaster's screech. To everyone's shock, the soldier mutated into a Cagaster and obeyed her command. However, in the end, Elie was still captured by Franz and taken away. Kiddo found a memory card hidden in Elie's belongings. After decoding it, he saw a recording from Elie's now-deceased father, Griffith. Griffith revealed a shocking truth. He was not Elie's biological father. Franz was her real father. Griffith had once been Franz's assistant. The two had been as close as brothers, until a certain experimental project caused them to completely fall out. Franz had a sister named Tanya, but Tanya wasn't entirely human. She had been surgically removed from the womb of a woman infected with the virus. They shared no blood relation. Franz used Tanya's genetic foundation to create a humanoid experimental subject. They named this subject Odd. From birth, Odd was forced to undergo brutal experiments. They intended to raise Odd into a being that could control the Cagaster, but in the end, the project failed. Odd became nothing more than a killing machine. Soon after, Franz discovered a strange pattern. The mutated Cagaster behaved like ants, all governed by a single queen. If Franz could create a queen under his control, then he could indirectly control all the Cagaster. With Odd and Tanya's data, his experiment made progress. To ensure a backup queen could be made, Franz married Tanya, and they gave birth to a daughter. That girl was Elie. But in the end, the experiment still failed. The true mastermind behind the scenes, Abraham, had invested immense resources and manpower into this research. He wouldn't tolerate Franz's failure. Desperate, Franz decided to use Tanya herself as the next test subject. Griffith strongly opposed the idea, but Tanya said she was willing to be sacrificed. Franz began dissecting Tanya, searching her body for the truth about human infection. Afterwards, Tanya was sealed inside an artificial cocoon created by Franz. She never woke again. At last, Franz achieved his lifelong goal. He turned Tanya into the Queen by transmitting specific sonic pulses from inside her cocoon. Tanya could control the Cagaster, but Abraham had far greater ambitions. Recent studies revealed that some people were born carrying dormant Cagaster genes. If they were exposed to the Queen's sound waves, it would awaken those genes and turn them into Cagaster. Abraham called this process the Judgment. By eliminating all gene carriers, no one would ever become a Cagaster again. Humanity would finally be free from the plague. To ensure the plan would last long-term, Franz intended to raise Elie as a backup queen. Griffith, looking at the innocent Elie, secretly took her and ran, perhaps out of guilt for Tanya. Franz didn't pursue them for many years. Griffith played the role of Elie's father. Gradually, Elie forgot the horrors of her early childhood. She believed Griffith truly was her dad, but happiness never lasts. When Elie turned 14, her Cagaster genes began to awaken. She accidentally transformed a human into a Cagaster in an instant. Griffith spent countless nights contemplating ending her life himself, but he could never bring himself to do it. Soon after, Elie was captured again and taken back to the lab. This time, Abraham planned to turn Elie into the new queen and use her to control E05 district. But during the transport process, Odd suddenly killed the guards and told Elie to go see Tanya one last time. Odd had been treated as nothing more than a test subject from the moment he was born, eventually becoming a monstrous being to take revenge on the scientists who had tortured him. Odd released all the insects from their petri dishes, slaughtered the researchers, and devoured their organs to vent the hatred buried deep within him. Odd wanted to help Elie escape this place, but Abraham's forces were overwhelming. They quickly tracked her down. Although Elie had not yet become a true queen, when she touched the Cagaster, she was still able to control them within a small range. So she mounted a Cagaster and rushed in the direction of her mother to stop Elie. Abraham ordered Franz to amplify the Queen's sonic waves to maximum power, activating control over all Cagaster. Under the sound's influence, the Cagaster seized Elie and brought her before Abraham. Elie looked at Franz, who was hiding behind Abraham, her expression full of complicated emotion. From the day she was born, Franz never allowed her to call him father. Just then, a screw came loose. Elie lost her balance and fell from the stairs. Thankfully, Kiddo arrived just in time and saved her. He had planned to take Elie away from this place, but Elie still had one final wish: to see her mother one last time. Meanwhile, Franz suddenly turned against Abraham. He shot and killed Abraham's man. The two of them had only ever used each other. Now that their relationship had reached its end, Franz's wish was to fulfill his father's research and uncover the truth about human infection. For him, the wish has now been fulfilled. When building the artificial cocoon, Franz had secretly rewritten the system code. When the cocoon reached maximum power, the system would initiate a reboot. From that moment on, the Queen would allow Cagaster to feed freely for 1 hour. In other words, for 1 full hour, the Cagaster would devour indiscriminately, friend or foe alike. Abraham killed Franz and then continued with his army to find Elie. During the escape, Kiddo was injured while protecting her. They fled through a secret passage. Unexpectedly, they ran into Abraham there. Abraham told Kiddo to hand over Elie, and he would let him live. Kiddo refused. He fired his gun and detonated a gas pipe, then grabbed Elie and told her to go see your mother. He stayed behind to hold off the enemy. Kiddo told Elie she had to survive, then turned back without looking. Even though he was wounded, Kiddo still fought with overwhelming power. In the chaos, he landed a shot directly to Abraham's head. Elie finally made it to her mother's side. At that moment, Franz's voice echoed through the control room. It turned out, Abraham hadn't managed to kill Franz completely. Using the last of his strength, Franz opened the door for Elie and explained the lab was now completely unmanned. As long as oxygen and nutrients were cut off, Tanya would slowly die. Then, a lever rose beside Elie. All she had to do was pull it, and it would all be over. The artificial cocoon would shut down, which meant the Cagaster would no longer be under anyone's control. Elie made the choice to free her mother from this nightmare. She forcibly cut off her mother's life support. The artificial cocoon broke down, the system began to collapse, and Tanya finally saw her daughter one last time. Even at the end, Tanya couldn't physically touch her child. With the last of her strength, she wrote 3 words on the glass: "I love you." The queen was dead. The Cagaster immediately left the facility. At last, Kiddo reached Elie, who had collapsed in grief. Together, they buried Tanya in the greenhouse. Odd placed Franz's body beside hers. Though they weren't his real parents, they were the ones who had brought him into this world. Everyone from the experiments was now gone. His revenge was complete. From then on, he no longer clung to the pain of his tragic past. Kiddo and Elie left that place together. The road ahead was long, but they would face it side by side.